Hello, everybody. Thing one and thing two are in the house with me today. We're going to have a great session about neurobics for effective memory practice. We'll talk about what neurobics are and give you three distinct categories with a number of memory and neurobic exercises you can do. So if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know in the discussion where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and let me know that you can hear and how you're doing. Just get active. The more people who are active in these discussions, the better. And neurobics are great. They really helped me a lot. They continue to help me a lot. And there's some wonderful, wonderful things that you can do that make life so much more interesting, and they really do make it like a cat in the hat adventure with thing one and thing two going on all the time, which is to say that you just enjoy your brain better, you enjoy your life better because of these exercises, and they're really rewarding. They make things clearer in your brain, they make your ability to focus and concentrate a lot sharper, and you really have that kind of cat in the hat mastery of where you are in the world and your ability to really focus in on what it is you want to do and how you're going to get there. So let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and we'll get started with what are neurobics. Well, neurobics, the term first came to me from reading this book by Lawrence Katz and Manning Rubin, and it's called Keep Your Brain Alive. And it really does have all of these wonderful exercises. I'm going to mention some of them here, but also some additional ones that aren't covered in the book on today's live stream. And it's going to really be something you want to follow up with. So if you haven't read Keep Your Brain Alive, please do. The audiobook is quite good. I would follow up the audiobook with an actual read of the book. And it is well worth your time. But again, I'm going to add some additional exercises that I've discovered along the way and put them in the context of memory, because why not double down? Why not take the ones that are specifically for memory and put them into context of memory so that you're able to build better and more effective memory palaces, and so that you're able to remember more. So I'm not sure, is the chat working? Usually somebody has said something by now. Let me know if you're here, where you are in the world. If you're joining us, hit that thumbs up, or let me know otherwise what you're doing, what you're thinking. Feel free to pop in questions as you go along. This is your opportunity as a public service from magneticmemorymethod.com to get your questions answered. Anything pertaining to memory techniques, memory palaces, and whatnot. And away we go. So let's first, whoa, something's wrong with the keyboard today. Sorry about that. So let's get a definition going here of what neurobics are. I'm going to have to find a different way to advance through our slides because that's not right. I'm going to the Mac store. Okay, everybody, let's not do any advertisements for Mac today because keyboard's a little bit sticky. I don't know why it does that from time to time. Always these technical issues that come up. Let me see how else I can navigate through these slides like this. Great. So let's talk about a definition of, that was definitely neurobics for my eyes. All right, so a definition of neurobics. They're activities, essentially, mental activities, mental exercises, or what we could maybe call cognitive exercises that enable us to achieve a number of outcomes. And the first outcome that we can talk about really is stimulating the brain. So what does this mean to stimulate the brain? Well, the brain is made up of all kinds of neural networks that actually are physical in nature, that have, brain chemistry involved, that have a lot of different parts, like you've heard about neuroplasticity. So you got the occipital lobe and the frontal lobe and the parietal lobe and all these different parts of the brain we don't have to dive into, but they're going to be stimulated. And the more that they are comprehensively stimulated, the more benefits you get. So brain stimulation is really a physical stimulation in the same way that you would stimulate a muscle. So obviously aerobic exercise stimulates the muscle of the heart, the lungs, and so on. Well, neurobic exercise physically stimulates the neurons and the neuronal networks And it's a very, very beautiful thing that it does that. And then the other thing is that it prevents potentially memory loss. And how would it do that? Well, one of the ways is that if you're getting neuronal exercise, or your actual physical chemical brain is being exercised and being improved through exercise, well, then you're going to definitely have boosts in memory because of the ways that your physical brain works. It's physical chemicals, it's physical structures. And so a lot of memory loss is coming from the fact that these muscles, so to speak, in the brain are not being exercised in the same way that bone density goes down, muscles shrink, and even, just become diseased because people don't work out their body. They don't do push-ups, they don't do any sort of muscle training, and then as a result, they end up losing those the integrity of bone density and muscles. So that is not good, and it's the same thing in your head. Hello to Arasaz. Thanks for saying hello. If you're joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And as always, this is a public service that allows you to get interactive, ask your questions, share with others your memory journey, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and so forth. The more active, the better. And doing this a little bit later than we usually do, and finding you guys are not so active as other times. So if you really like this at this time, make sure you're active to let me know. Good to see Eric from Washington, D.C. All right. So, Washington, D.C., let's do a quick memory exercise here that I like to do. One of the reasons why I ask you where you're from is because I think, do I know a band from that city? And it's like a quick little autobiographical and episodic, sometimes memory exercise, because I think Fugazi and I think Rollins Band, or at least Henry Rollins anyway, if memory serves, both of those bands and individual figures are from Washington, D.C. Now, there may be other things that I can push through. Then I think Fugazi, well, obviously Minor Threat was pre-Fugazi, and I think they're probably from there. I was just going to go to Black Flag, as Eric says. And so you can see that there's opportunities to do brain exercises all the time, and neurobics are a kind of brain exercise that's really about the physical brain. But even these mental brain exercises where you're just tracking locations, what do you know about a location? What do you think about a location? And how does it specifically relate to your episodic and autobiographical memory? And in this case, we're also getting a little bit of exercise of different levels of memory for which there may be no name, right? Because, and we'll talk about this as we go through today's presentation, because there are auditory neurobic exercises, and this is another thing. If I can hear Black Flag, if I can hear Henry Rollins' voice, if I can hear Ian MacKay's voice from Fugazi and so on, and think of other kinds of bands that might be there from that style, I'm accessing something deep in the memory that is giving it a bit of exercise. Then there's a visual figural memory, perhaps, and visual memory component in that I can think of album covers and try and visualize, so to speak, even if I'm not a visual person, which I'm not, and even if you're not a visual person, which you may not be, you can really think through what is it that you see. And can you make a discography in your mind of album covers, right? Now, Washington, D.C. may have some other things that you might think about, such as presidents and government buildings and yada, yada, yada. Maybe there's some things you think about in terms of what D.C. means and how that all fits into the structures of the country, etc. There's lots of ways that you can go, and it's up to you to think. I go to music because I'm just a musical kind of guy, I guess, but there's other places you can go. Attila asks thoughts on nootropics. Attila, great question. Thank you for that question. You want to guide me a little bit more specifically? Please do. Otherwise, I recommend water in a very special cup. And, one that pleases you. As far as I'm concerned, water is the ultimate nootropic. Most people shouldn't be adding anything. They should be taking things away. And if they're going to add something, it should be more water. So let me know if you want me to go in a more specific direction. But that's my thoughts on neurotropics so far. The Stanley Cup. Well, yeah, that's something that a Canadian like myself cannot ignore, that word. All right. So we got preventing memory loss. Got to remember that my keyboard isn't working. We got to do it this way. And we also have improve memory recall, potentially, right? So some of these things may improve memory recall, but at the end of the day, you know what's going to improve memory recall the most? Training your memory to recall better. So hit up this free course at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT if you don't have it already, because neurobics are not necessarily going to improve your memory in anything like the laser targeted focused way that proper effective memory training based around a memory palace technique will do. So grab that free course if you don't already have it at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT. You can also just go to magneticmemorymethod.com and rock and roll your way into it from there. All right, so Ramiro is here. Hello, Ramiro. Thanks for saying hello. Good to see you. Ben 10 is here. Can you recommend some brain boosting food? Yeah, foods that improve memory specifically are salmon, blueberries, green tea is said to do so, water again, walnuts. Unfortunately, I can't eat a lot of these foods because of food sensitivities, but others can, so please do. Blueberries, did I mention those? That's about the list. But the real thing is, what are you going to take away? So before you add anything, think about what you can take away. My upcoming book has a whole chapter, not a lot to do with it, but a whole chapter on elimination diets and rotation diets to help you figure out how you can remove brain fog through these activities so that your memory becomes more laser focused. Very, very important to think of it that way. Peggy, good to see you. Haven't seen your name for a while. Good to always see you. And you are in New York City. All right. Looking forward to coming again in May when I have tickets for Wagner's Ring Cycle. Sehr gut. Wunderbar. And you are on target for filling up your German language memory palaces. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, good to see you, Peggy. And yeah, enjoy German and Wagner and enjoy New York. As you may know, I used to live there in Washington Heights, which is beautiful, beautiful territory. If you're ever in New York and you want to see my old neighborhood, go to Cabrini, and if you see the wall there, I used to stand at that wall, look at the bridge there. There's a little uh, lighthouse, and there's even a book about that lighthouse. Beautiful, beautiful stuff, and those are some of my memory palaces, and really fun to think about that neighborhood. Um, it's really, really a beautiful thing to also harness these moments and think back through the buildings, through the streets. I remember at the corner there, I don't know if it's still there, probably not, but there was a guy, I don't have it here, I'd show it to you. No, I don't have it in this room. But I remember, like, I've had the same wallet since I was in high school. And while I was living in New York, the wallet came apart and he sewed it back together for me. It was amazing that there was just this guy. I remember being so paranoid that I wouldn't get my wallet back. And he sewed it up and it's lasted. So it would have been 2006 to 2008 ish that I lived in New York. And since then, his sewing up of my wallet has lasted and has no sign of not showing showing wear and tear from that time. And this little booth that was there, it was must have been 182 or 187. Anyway, I'm not sure where because it's a little weird corner there, but he that little booth could be a memory palace. I've never thought of it before today, and this is a great example of just taking the opportunity to harness these questions, think about places whenever something comes up, like New York City, as Peggy's mentioning, or Washington D.C., as Eric mentioned, and just harness it. And this is not me, boring you with my life stories, but to demonstrate how your life is the only thing that you have to go through and use as memory tools. So do it. Just think, what do I know that's related to Washington, D.C.? What do I know that's related to New York? And then you'll get more memory palaces and you'll get more figures, right, to use, because this guy was such a character in that little box that was there to do shoe repair and leather work and so forth. And it's really, really amazing what it can do for you to follow these exercises. And it's part of what we're talking about today with neurobics. So, great, great, great. And great that you're in New York, and go see Washington Heights. In other words, that's the point. Go see Washington Heights and go down Cabrini to the end. There's this wall there. It used to be a wall. I know that there was like almost going to be a building collapse. So who knows what things look like there these days. But try and see if you can find the little red lighthouse. It's amazing, assuming it's still there. All right. So let's catch up with some of the chat here. By the way, I'll catch up with all the chats. Thank you for putting them in. Since we're here live, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, and if you have questions. Ben 10 asks about my thoughts about coffee. I love coffee. Actually, I just posted something on Twitter the other day, shared a wonderful article about coffee, and I just said, look, I've been depressed for years, and I decided one day to do an experiment and got rid of all my antidepressant medication and switched in coffee. Never looked back, never been on antidepressants or bipolar medication since. And coffee has been very, very helpful, even though I never drank coffee for years and years and years. There was a period from age 14 until almost, well, yeah, I was almost 40. I didn't drink any coffee except for the odd time, but maybe that's why I was depressed all those years. I don't know. But anyway, doctor's advice, please. I always did all these things with a doctor's advice in hand, but I think coffee is great. Now, why would coffee have anything to do with memory? I think the answer is pretty easy. If you're more alert, you're paying more attention. If you're paying more attention, you have more to work with to get in your memory. And if your brain is generally healthy and you pay attention to information, then you get into at least a couple levels of processing. And the more levels of processing that you have, the more you're going to be able to remember just naturally without the memory techniques. Now, of course, we want memory techniques because there are particular pieces of information that are part of our learning and study goals where just some levels of processing and so forth aren't going to be nearly as effective or fast as memory techniques, so that we can reduce the amount of repetitions that we have to do, make the repetitions that we do much more effective. And we know that rote learning is 40 to 44% effective for getting things into long-term memory, whereas mnemonics, when done well, is more like 88 to 98% effective. And you can go nuts reading all the brain science around that. Obviously, there's a lot out there, but that's what I've come to understand. Not just from their reports, but just from doing it, speaking with other memory experts. And I've been updating the Magnetic Memory Method blog recently, all the original posts from 2013. And there's some really, really interesting things that I had posted back in the day, all about some of the memory science that I discovered at the time. And it's all still wonderfully accurate and true. And I'm quite, I don't really have much of an ego. I'm trying to grade it out with my meditation practices, but I still feel a little bit of, shall we say, pride in the fact that this all evergreen information. I didn't know anything about what the heck I was doing in terms of SEO and being found on the internet, but you look at those things and it's just like, not bad content-wise. It's still true and useful, and I'm just making it more readable and linking it better in the site. And so, yeah, interesting stuff. Anyway, there's many references to the science of how that memory techniques work and the actual numbers for the average individual who will sit down and learn them. And that's just great if you want to check it out. You can easily navigate through the Magnetic Memory Method blog and just go back to the beginning, and you'll see that about 11 or so have been updated to 2019, and there's still a whole bunch from 2013 and all the way up that need to be updated. All right, so Eric says black coffee is great for depression. Roasting your own is far better than buying pre-roasted. Roasted my beans with a $20 popcorn popper. Wow, that sounds like a great thing to try. That sounds like a YouTube video waiting to happen. Speaking of which, I have a YouTube video of me making bulletproof coffee in Berlin. It's kind of funny. I didn't really know how to edit videos, but there it is. Eric says, any suggestions on memorizing menu items that are called out to me during dinner service? Yeah, great. So one of the things you want to do is, once you have a solid memory palace practice, you can learn to use the place that you're in as a memory palace and use each person as a kind of palace inside of a palace. So let's say someone's saying sunny side up, boom, there's like a big sun on their head. And then they say, oh, German sausages or whatever, boom, there's a big German sausage on their shoulder, etc. But before you start doing that stuff, I would just get solid with a real good memory palace technique and make sure you're good at that. And then start to do it in real time and use a combination of the person and the place. So it's kind of difficult to describe, but when I go and memorize all the names in rooms, I don't just memorize the names in rooms, but I memorize details about them as they come up. So one of the things that astonishes people during these demonstrations is, and just to take a key example that will help answer your question, Eric, is there was this meeting I went to and I did my memory thing, and everybody introduced themselves and so forth, but there's a couple of people who mentioned that they were stand-ins for other people. So there was a guy named Edward who said he was a stand-in for Angela, and there was a guy named Luke who was a stand-in for Peter, and then there was another guy named Martin who mentioned something about someone named Eloise who was working on a thriller novel. I still remember all this stuff, and what I did is I just compounded on to them. And what's really interesting about this, and you'll feel it when you do it and you'll see it in practice, is that where they were sitting was not necessarily where I memorized their names, but then you could cross index it, so to speak. So Madam Martin over here, then he goes and sits there, and now when he mentions Eloise, I can put an image where he is there, and it in no way interferes with the original image I gave to him over there. So it's almost like, those movies or those things where they show people on their cell phones, and then the chat bubble is floating over their head showing what they typed. It's kind of like that. Like, it follows them around as they're moving and it's with them. And then if they stay stationary, you just tag them. You add more stuff. So when, the case of Edward is different because he was where he was when I heard his name, and he was where he was when he mentioned Angela. But Martin was a different place, and then he was somewhere else when he mentioned this Eloise in the thriller novel. And then, like Alan, for example, he was in one place, then another place, and then some months later I learned that his footy number was 17, so then I just added that in a completely different location, and it's like cross-index somehow, cross-referenced. Anyway, hope that helps answer your question. There's lots of ins and outs and finicky little things that you'll find in your own practice, and enjoy, because it's a wild adventure and a lot of fun. All right, let's keep the chat going. Thanks everyone who's joining us. Hit the thumbs up. Get involved in the discussion. I will catch up with all the chats and really enjoy turning these into interactive activities. Crone Woman Walking says, I can vouch for Neurobics. What are some good Neurobics for digital holidays or at work or digital fasting? Tonight I explained to a nurse aide what a STEMI, it's probably not STEMI. I'm so used now to German and Sanskrit with this st sound that I just do it automatically. A STEMI heart attack is from memory. I consider that neurobics. Well, you're absolutely right, Renee. It is, memory techniques are like the ultimate neurobics. You're going into your memory palace, or you're even just using stuff that's in long-term memory, and you don't need a memory palace intervention, so to speak. You just go straight to the information, whatever it is. Either way, it's great, because accessing your memory is accessing your memory is accessing your memory. It's beautiful, beautiful exercise. So in terms of what would be good neurobics, that's what we're going to talk about today. So let me just bookmark that for our discussion. But there's 3 categories that we'll talk about, and then you can pick and choose and put them into action. And a lot of these are good for both being at work and when you're out digital fasting or on a digital holiday. MPC Tube is here from San Fran. Good to see you. Thanks for saying hello. Eric says the chef calls out 13 different menu items to me during service, some of which take up to 15 minutes. So if I forget, not good. Yeah, well, then, if you know it's going to be 13, then prepare yourself with like a 15 station memory palace or a 20 station one. And in this case, you can experiment with different things. You might want to do a combination of skills so that you have like a number image or a number rhyme list, and have combinations. So you can have a memory palace that has pre-built in your number image list or your number rhyme list or your 00 to 99, or you can use them independently in real time. They're all great neurobic exercise, a memory exercise, so to speak, but you'll absolutely love the process, and you're very welcome. Thank you for your thank you, and I'm glad that these complement the Magnetic Memory Method course. Obviously, these things work together, and the encouragement here is for you to invest in your mind and your memory by getting the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. Start with the free memory improvement kit at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT, and you'll notice that a number of Masterclass students show up here today. I leave it to them to introduce themselves and sing the praises if they so choose, but I'm always grateful when they do. And I see a bunch here today. Thank you for being here. And what a blessing to be able to do this work. I appreciate each and every one of you. So Peggy says Washington Heights is just 1.5 miles from my granddaughter's HSMDE, High School of Fathers, Science Engineering, and perhaps I can pick her up someday and visit that lighthouse. Please do. Send me a picture. I'd love to see that. I haven't seen it for a long time, but it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful area. And yeah, generally Washington Heights is very cool. And obviously you want to visit some of the district there because there's lots of cool restaurants and whatnot. And there's a lot. I mean, one of the fun things that you can do, you don't want to necessarily do the whole thing, but you can, if you're feeling brave, walk all the way down Broadway to wherever, like down to Lincoln Square or to Columbus Circle or wherever if you want to go even further. I don't think I ever did that whole thing, but I remember my former wife's sister. They walked all the way down there and they wound up in Battery Park. What a walk that was. Anyway, great territory. I'll tell you sometime my time that I walked through Harlem and my story of getting mugged, or almost mugged, because being able to relax on the spot saved my skin, and that guy didn't get a dime out of me. But that's a story for a different time. All right, so Ajinkya is here. Hello, Ajinkya. Thanks for saying hello. Reclaiming Life is here. Always good to see you. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And let's get deeper into this definition of neurobics and why would we want to do neurobics in the first place? Well, one of the things is it can improve your mood. If you never notice that I'm pretty much in a good mood most of the time, neurobics have helped create that. And one of the reasons why that it helps create that is what we talked about before. It's brain stimulation. The more you stimulate your brain, the more blood is flowing through, the more positive and negative ions are calibrated to flow through the synapses, like it's just humming along. So that's obviously going to improve your mood, and it'll also improve focus because you need to absolutely be focused in every moment if you possibly can. Be more and more focused. Focus upon focus. Zeroing in on that focus. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to be able to do that. And doing some of these exercises is also going to improve your memory, as we talked about. But again, the caveat is if you really want to improve your memory, focus on improving your memory through memory techniques, because that's really the real deal, right? So decide whether you want general memory improvement or do you want focused memory, like actual focused laser sharp memory improvement for specific goals, like learning a language, learning something for your certification, profession, etc., etc. That's the important thing. And then, of course, the last thing I would mention is that it improves your mindset. And this is one of the things that so many people struggle with. They just are so negative and down on themselves. I know a little bit about this because I spent years being negative on myself, and it was hard to get out of it. And these exercises really helped. And it's hard now for me to look back at that guy and see just what a weaponized human being I was against myself. It was sick, and it was very sad and tragic that so much energy was lost. And it's what depression is. Depression is partly this disease that uses your own thoughts against you. And those thoughts calibrate themselves so that you can't even have a proper mindset. But these techniques really, really helped, and they helped me get out of that negative framework. So you're going to love what you learned today, provided you do the most important thing, which is to take action. Action, action, action. Implement, implement, implement. Execute, execute, execute. Or, in the words of Ross Perot, woo, perhaps a contentious and controversial reference, but he's in my memory, fire, fire, fire. And I'll never forget him saying that. So whatever you think about that dude, if you even remember him, he was right in spirit, if not exactly in context. But yeah, we got to execute. We got to actually put this into action, or else the evil Dr. Forget will get hold of your soul, and he will hold you in negativity forever. And so that's one of the number one things, is you've got to do thing one and thing two and even thing three, which is execute, execute, execute. Do so consistently, and that will help improve your mindset, because when you're feeling better, you're able to have a better mindset. I've seen this play out in my own life and in others. All right, Werner is here. Hello, Werner. Good to see that you're back. Austin Winter is here. Ideas for memorizing finger rings on piano or just in general body postures? Yes, many, many. Let's catch up with those in a while. I'll scroll back, and if I forget, then remind me, but I shouldn't. But we can talk about that in a minute. Physico is experimenting. Good to see you, Physico. Thanks for saying hello. Thanks for being with us. Experimenting with bullet journal method for productivity. If you know it, I humbly ask you to give me some ideas to put in some useful routines regarding neurobics to journal easily. Physical, don't always go for the easy. Instead of wishing you were easy, things were easier, wish that you were better, and use the journal itself to journal ways that you could find a way to get out of, this mindset of needing it to be easier all the time, and instead just think about how you can be better at it. I think that's going to be a huge thing for a lot of people. They're always looking for easy street. Well, what if the problem is that there is no easy street, and your desire for easy, your attachment and focus on wishing it was easier, is the thing that's trapping you and holding you prisoner to the hell that you're in, if you're in hell? What if? What if? Compelling thought, right? Stop looking for easy street. Start looking for the things you're actually going to do, and use your bullet journal to bullet out what it is that you could actually do, whether it's easy or not, and do it consistently and focus on it. Because everybody knows the hidden truth is that there ain't nothing easy. There's nothing easy. But there are things that are easy and that are fun and effective relative to your mindset, to your focus, to your concentration, to your single-minded dedication to getting from point A to point B with a smile on your face, right? That actually makes it easy, right? Because you're able to tackle any obstacle. And then you realize that the whole idea of easy is an illusion anyway, right? It's not really that easy even exists. Easy is some kind of weird illusion that nobody who ever does anything worth doing needs at all. You think what I do right now is easy? Oh boy. No, there's no easy street here. Don't want it, don't need it. Never was on the menu. It never will be for anybody. It's about what's effective and what works, and then knowing how to manipulate your brain chemistry so you don't need it to be easy, because you've got the dopamine spikes, you've got the myelin, you've got the opioid receptors just so bam that you're easy isn't even a question in your mind. Your mindset doesn't care about easy, because you are free from the illusion of anything being work in the first place, right? So Mr. Space is in the house with his oh no evil Dr. Forget. Yeah, well, one of the tools of the evil Dr. Forget is, I'll tell them it's easy. No, everything takes effort, right? Eating chocolate takes effort. Kissing, I love to kiss. That takes effort. And getting in a position where you can kiss the people you want to kiss legally, ethically, romantically, because they want to be kissed too, that ain't easy. But we still do it, and we do it with love and passion, because we're humans and we've tapped into that drive of that we must we must be alive. We're animals, and we've got to dive in and do our thing. So, it's just easy isn't really the question. All right, Attila is here. What are some great memory techniques for music theory, intervals, and chord structures, peg system, memory palace, etc.? Well, I wouldn't necessarily use pegs, but the memory palace, when you turn the instrument into a memory palace and you use a 00 to 99 PAO, it's the ne plus ultra. Very, very fun. All right, so let's see. We got a couple of questions about music. Let's catch them up at the end. Definitely neurobics, but let's see here. I got to remember my keyboard's not working properly. Do this manually. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks for your good questions. Thanks for your comments. Get involved and hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world if you're just joining us now. Let's get into more of this definition. So neurobics has at least 3 categories, probably more, but these are the 3 big ones that I want to share with you today to give you some material to work with. One is that neurobics often includes some kind of physical component. Now remember, we talked about how it's the physical material of the brain that's being exercised here, the chemicals, the neural networks. Neuroplasticity is going to happen for you if you do these exercises, and you're going to use some kind of physical component in the world, right? And you're going to interact with it. So that's the first category that we'll talk about today. The next category is some sort of environmental component. Now, this is a bit of a contradiction. Why? Because the environment is physical, right? Everything's physical at the end of the day. Your brain chemistry is physical. Your brain is physical. Your body is physical, etc. And the environment is physical. Now, here's the thing. Are you in the room? Or is the room in you? Think about that right now. You're in a room right now, assuming you're in a room, or you're in a bus, you're in a car, you're in a train, you're in a plane, wherever you are. I don't know where you are. Let me know in the chat where you are, where you physically are right now. Are you in the room or is the room in you? What do I mean by this? Well, the environment, right, is somehow inside of you, right? How do I know this? Well, because brain scans, right, show us. And if you want to read a great book, Stephen Kostlin's The Case for Mental Imagery, beautiful, beautiful demonstration of how this works. Everything I'm looking at right now exists in the world. There's really no reason to doubt that. But it's here. It's being experienced here, right? And wherever you are is in you. Isn't that wonderful? It's nowhere else. It's not in me because I'm not you. And where I'm at is not in you because you're not me. Except there's this interesting thing where I actually am in you right now. And we are one at this moment relative to how much attention you're actually paying to this production that we're putting on right now, this theater of memory, so to speak. Mr. Space is on the bed and, well, I'm in your head on the bed. Woo, this is sounding more and more like the Cat in the Hat as we speak. I'm in your head on the bed. Let's just hope neither of us are dead. And neither of us are named Fred, because if we were Fred, then we would be misled. Okay, I'm not exactly a poet, I'll admit that. But maybe there's a poem that one of you can take this and riff on it and make it better. But think about this sort of stuff. It's a neurobic exercise. Are you in the room or is the room in you? There's an environmental component to neurobic exercises. We'll get into it and we'll talk deeply about it. Now, there's a third category, which is the category that has some sort of auditory component. Now, everything physical has an auditory component, or a lot of physical things has an auditory component. Pretty much every environmental component has an auditory component, but we can, for the question of categorization, we can also think about the auditory component as being somewhat separate as its own category. So Arisa says, the question of philosophy. I'm not meaning it in a philosophical sense. I'm meaning it in a neurophysical sense, a neuroscience sense, and trying actually to not think of it philosophically, even though we love knowledge in that sense of philosophy, but actually trying to think of it in terms of a brain exercise that will actually stimulate parts of your brain, which philosophy will do. But we also want to think about how to improve our memory practice, because when you're making memory palaces, one of the number one things that you can think about is, am I in the room or is the room in me? And do I need rooms to be in me in order to use them as memory palaces? So there's a little bit of a non-philosophical question for you. All right, let's see here. So those are the three categories, and we're going to dive into physical neurobic exercises first. But before we do that, let's catch up with our chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know in the chat where you're from, where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and so forth. So let's catch up with this thing about music first. So what's the best memory technique for music? Well, at the end of the day, if you're performing music, dedicated practice is the best memory technique. But in terms of actually memorizing phrases, in terms of memorizing chords, if you really need to do that, this is a big topic, but the number one thing to do is think about what's your goal. And if it is to memorize phrases, then think about the instrument. How can you turn the instrument into a memory palace? So on a guitar, well, let's just have a looky-loo, shall we? Um, this guitar has a number of frets, and each fret can be designated a number, and it often is, if you look at tablature, for example. Um, so this is a B string, and doesn't have to be tuned to B. Currently, it probably is. Well, not probably, it is, but it may have been out of tune because I haven't picked this up for a couple of days. Then there's E, A, D, G, etc. On this particular instrument. So there's a designation for you, and there's a way to use every string as a mnemonic device, and then there's a way to use every fret in combination with a 00 to 99. So if we know that the E string, for example, is always indicated by Ernie, and then we have a 00 to 99 that tells us that 01 is always the sad tragedy mask, then we can start to memorize phrases quite easily, because A is Al Pacino, D is Dracula, G is Grover. And then if we want to remember some stuff, we tell a little bit of a story. The character and what the character is doing tells you the string and the note. There's not a replacement for dedicated practice. It's just a kind of cool thing to do so that you don't have to look at the sheet music over and over and over again. You can also use this to help you learn the fretboard in terms of where the notes are, string by string. So Ernie with Tragedy Mask, Ernie with the Sun, Ernie with the sandwich. Oh, by the way, I use sandwich because of this show called Euphoria Emporium. I make a sandwich out of you, this guy says at one point. And the guys who did Euphoria Emporium, they were like my heroes when I was in high school. Very, very small little cable 10 TV show. They recently posted the final episode, and it has the sandwich, I make a sandwich out of you part. So if you follow me on Facebook or whatever, let me know if you want to see that, and I'll post it. But find me on Facebook and ask me over there, and then I can post it on a page where you like my stuff or whatever, and I'll share it there. Anyway, Sartre on the 4th fret, Sal from Dog Day Afternoon on the 5th, etc. So you can learn all those notes, because if you want to remember on the 5th fret that that's an A, right? Now you could have Sal with a Canadian, like, I don't know, he's saying A, you know what I mean, eh? And that can help you remember that, and then you're done. And, if you want to remember that 3rd fret is G, is that right? Yeah, G. Then we're going to think about Ernie with the sandwich guy, right? And then G sharp, right? Then we could have, a knife involved, or whatever, F sharp. We can have a knife involved. We can have Foucault over it. We could do all kinds of things. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. Now, in terms of piano, pretty much the same deal, but now instead of a fretboard, you don't have strings that are individually named in quite the same way, though there are strings in pianos. In any case, are you getting where I'm going here? If you have the skills, then you have the skills that go to the next level, and you are able to rock and roll into all kinds of things. But piano is there. Now, if you're memorizing music theory, that's a different thing. If you're memorizing chords, well, that's chord progressions, better said, that's even easier. You just have an alphabet list. If you have all kinds of, really fancy chords with augmented this and diminished that, you can figure it out. I'm very confident that you can if you want to. But I hope that answers your questions about music. I get asked it so much, I'm thinking of doing a course from the high level with some specifics. But in the meantime, there's a couple of blog posts, a couple episodes on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast and blog. There's a really good interview with my friend John. You can listen to. He talks about his mnemonic adventures, learning all the modes and whatnot. So even without that course being there, there's a lot of information for you. It's just you got to dive in and you got to learn the basics, the fundamentals, so that you can have these adventures. All right, let's see here. Catching up with our chats. So Physical says, my mind is full of clutter. My consistency comes from little steps. If I do a big step, my life gets in the way because of interfering people that unfortunately are connected to my life. Don't blame others. That's not a winning strategy. Austin confirms the room is in you. Good. So Physical says, that's why I need easy steps. It can be a bunch of them, but if it is too strange to my normal routine, external forces will make me go back. Think of it like a Kaizen method. I want to change a bit. Yeah, Kaizen is interesting, Physical. I don't necessarily agree with it for all things. And I think that the biggest clue here you've revealed, which is you're pointing your finger at others. No. That's the number one thing to ensure that the evil Dr. Forget will keep hold of your soul for as long as you do that. I did that for a long time. It doesn't work. It doesn't even make sense. Now we ask the question, are you in the room or is the room in you? Are you in those people or are they in you? Think about that. There's a little step for you that's really a big one too. Think about that, my friend. Thank you always for your questions, but you say that you cannot afford to eliminate those people from your life. You may not need to. Are those people in you or are you in them or what? Think about this. Go back, watch the live stream with the Ribhu Gita, memorize the Ribhu Gita as I did, and really think a little bit differently. And by the way, I like your joke about no need to fret. I've often thought about how we could do stand-up comedy around memory, and I utterly failed. I remember back in the day on the Mnemotechnic forum that I tried to tell some jokes about memory, but it just was not going because I'm not really a comedian, I don't think, but maybe one day. All right, Mr. Space says, I really appreciate your informative advices. Well, thank you, Mr. Space. I really appreciate you being here. Reclaiming Life, William says, I'm starting to work on memorizing cards, and as a way of always having cards with me, I have also started into cardistry. Awesome. Well, cardistry is coming up. I love that. Thanks for letting us know. Cardistry is so much fun. Wonderful. All right. Eddie ate dynamite. Goodbye, Eddie. That reminds me of a poem that I think was in a book called Garbage Delight. I never memorized it, but it was something like Polly grew a mustache, and Susie grew a beard. I should memorize it. If anybody can find Garbage Delight, let me know because I would like to get it again. And I was just a little boy and I only remember it vaguely, but it was so funny. I wish that I had memory techniques back then. Anyway, the idea is that Polly grows a mustache, Susie grows a beard, and then at the end, either Polly or Susie one of them gets shears and one of them gets a balm. And then the last line is, now Polly's face is clean again, Polly's face is smooth again, Polly's face is smooth again, and Susie's face is gone. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was in this book called Garbage Delight, a Canadian classic that it's probably fallen to the wayside. My grandmother used to send me these books that were just insane. Man, that was a great one. Anyway, if I ever get hold of that book again, it might have been in this other one. I think it was called Alligator Stew or Alligator Soup or something like that. Anyway, if I ever get hold of that stuff again, I'm going to memorize that poem. and maybe some of the other ones, because it was just amazing. It was amazing. All right, let's see here. Reclaiming Life asks, have you ever used tarot cards, the game type or more common divination type, to take up the challenge a bit more? 78 cards, 56 minors, 22 majors with no suits. I know that we can. I've never memorized them, but I have done. When I was doing magic more often, performance magic, I do a trick that involves. I just have the major arcana to do the trick, and it's a really neat one because, without getting into it too much, I show the people the cards. I ask them to take one, then I ask them to take the half of the deck and then turn their card upside down. I do the same behind my back, turn the card upside down. Lo and behold, they have the sun and I have the moon. That shows that we have complementary pairs. Then I do some cold reading, and if you know how to do cold reading, it can really blow people's minds. You got to do it ethically and explain what it was that you did later. But it's an interesting skill, and the only thing that makes the difference between, it being a good, wonderful skill for creating illusions is whether you're ethical and honest about it. So that's the thing to keep in mind. If you know Darren Brown, he does a lot of cold reading. The real king of cold reading, I think, is a guy named Ian Rowland, who wrote the Full Facts book of cold reading. So highly recommend that. All right. So anyway, there's another trick I used to do, which is basically just with 3 tarot cards. So like 2 coins and the death card, and it's kind of like a 3-card Monty sort of routine. But in any case, that's all that I've done there. I've never memorized the tarot, but yeah, you're right. It would be a great brain exercise and memory exercise for people to memorize. So basically, if you went from memorizing a deck of cards to memorizing the tarot, you'd have your thing 1 and thing 2. Rock and roll. Good suggestion. Reclaiming Life says, love cold reading. Yeah, have you ever read the Ian Rowland treatise on the matter? It's brilliant. Brilliant. And you say that the poem sounds similar to Edward Gorey. Yeah, well, I can't think of the name of the guy. Again, this is when I was a kid. And obviously it was a poet and a narrator. Anyway, my keyboard's a little bit broken. Otherwise, I'd look it up right now. But here we go. I think we're caught up with all the chats. We did the music thing. Let me make sure that I'm not missing. I have a feeling that I'm missing something from one of our precious people here today. And I know I saw something that I didn't get to that had to do with the military. And I flagged it in my mind to make sure I don't miss it. Ryan O'Donnell, in the military, you're referring to what is called situational awareness based on your 6 senses. Great, Ryan. Thanks for that. Dennis Lee. That's the guy. That's right. Garbage Delight. And I think the other one was Alligator Pie or Alligator Stew or Alligator something or other. Anyway, they're just great. Oh, man. So thanks, Dennis Lee. That's right. I got to look up some of the other things. My grandma just gave me the craziest books. Wow, I miss her. She was a cool cat. Anyway. Dun, 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 dun. Physical says, well, people start to get aggressive over my changes. I explained them to the best of my abilities. However, it wasn't enough. For the sake of peace, I did it again slowly. It worked. My safety is necessary. Yes, indeed. Keep yourself safe always, my friend. Please do that. All right, so let's get into some physical neurobic exercises. We got 3 categories. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Get subscribed to this channel if you aren't already. And come and get the free memory improvement kit over at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT. The first category is physical neurobic exercises. We got 2 more categories. Let me give you some that I've tried. I'm only going to share ones that I've tried. There are obviously more. These ones I really like. And one is non-dominant hand development. So when I was really in a bad place, this was something that helped me in many, many ways. And one of the things that I tried that I would suggest you try is toothbrushing with your non-dominant hand. So it's just a small little thing. And, normally I would brush with one hand, then just start to brush with another one. You can go a little bit further, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but you can brush with your eyes closed as well. I often brush my teeth with my eyes closed. It feels really good. It changes the whole game. But just give it a try. Changing hand. Sounds like nothing, but it's a great thing. Now, for more challenge, handwriting with the non-dominant hand. Now, I discovered when I first started doing this that actually I can write pretty good with both hands just out of nowhere on a flat surface. So I used to kind of freak out the students because as a professor, I would write with one hand, and then instead of walking over to the other side or the other board in these giant lecture halls, I would just change hands and start writing with the other hand. And they thought that was a pretty cool trick. And so I started to develop a means of thinking about this and doing it in my memory journal. And one of the things that really helped me is I would do my gratitude journaling with the non-dominant hand, and I would do my journaling of, general personal development, goal setting, and testing my goals with my non-dominant hand. And then I would even write backwards with my non-dominant hand. So instead of writing from left to right, write from right to left. And so you're getting double whammy exercise there. And for Renee, this is some of the things that you could do while you're on digital vacation or digital fasting is carry one of these and then just spend some time writing out your goals backwards in your non-dominant hand. Don't worry if it's sloppy. You can work on penmanship, but the goal here is more just like give different parts of your brain different exercise. So very, very powerful. And I like to pair things to memory as well. So when you're doing your recall rehearsal, write out what you recalled in your non-dominant hand. And then if you want to up the challenge, write in your non-dominant hand backwards, so to speak. And, I'm not talking about backwards as in representing the letters backward, though you certainly can do that with a mirror. I'm just talking about writing it backwards with the letters facing the way that they would do, in forwards. And that's been really powerful. Why? Well, part of it is you increase your focus on the content. So form and content come together, and your focused attention make you pay greater attention to what you're doing, which gives it more meaning, gives it more impact. And because you're activating more of your brain, well, then more of your attention and focus is all seeping in and percolating, and then it's much more likely to translate into action. And these different little exercises are mini little actions, physico, that you can take that then make the next action. And in the case of handwriting and pairing handwriting to things like your gratitude journaling, you're then getting better mindset, right? Because if you can just write down 10 things that you're grateful for, it's going to be very, very hard to whine and complain, right? Because you'll be like, oh my God, I've got it so good. And it's hard to deny. If you want the science around this, read 59 Seconds by Richard Weissman in terms of handwriting, gratitude journaling, and there's some controversy around whether writing out your goals is really going to help you get where you're at. There was some goofy stuff with some of the research. In my practical life, really it's been the combination of all these things. So I wouldn't say, oh, this is what really did the trick. It's like all the things combined that did the trick. But at the end of today's presentation, I'll give you some suggestions about how you'll be able to get all this as an actual thing that's going for you without, overwhelming yourself step by step. Even if I don't necessarily buy into Kaizen for everything, there is a Kaizen here, and I certainly did it step by step. But you can focus on bigger levers, certainly. All right, so another thing that you can do is musical instrument changes. So if you are a musician, right, and you're always playing bass with this hand, your left hand, and you're always playing, the higher tones, alto and tenor and yada yada over here and the main riffs, etc. Well, you could practice the bass. Just cross your body, right? Maybe you don't want to start with something too complex, but you could do that. Likewise with guitar. There's no rule that says, like, I'm a left-handed person, but I've always played guitar right-handed. There's no rule that says I can't spend some time on the instrument left-handed. So this has been great. just plucking around, spending 10, 15 minutes to train yourself that way. Now, the whole thing about cardistry came up and legerdemain. So I've spent a lot of time training myself to do magic tricks that I do with my non-dominant hand, and a lot of shuffles with my non-dominant hand. And then in cardistry, there are a lot of mirrored tricks that you want to do with like both hands need to operate equally. I don't think I'm going to be able to do this right now. It's really hot in here and sweaty, but you know, there's a kind of a mirroring. Whoop, yeah, I can't do it. I'm too sweaty. It's Australia, and it's a really hot day, and these lights make it even hotter. But this is called Sybil, and there you go. It's not quite the right angle for this, but if you do it right and your hands aren't sticky and sweaty, it's a nice display of multiple faces and card backs. And there's different ways to do it. I have to study how to do cardistry on camera to get the proper examples. But the actual example I wanted to show is like a butterfly charlier. So again, I'm pretty sticky here today, but you want to be able to do the same movements in both hands like that. So not very good angles here. I got to study some cardistry videos, because if you watch the videos, they're very beautiful. How they, yeah, I'm stuck on this side. They're very beautiful. But if you can do it fluidly in a nice air-conditioned room, and you're not all sweaty, you can just very smoothly do a butterfly cut in both hands. Oh, too sticky. But you can see how it coordinates, and there's more to it than that. But oh, it's too sticky. I'm sorry, guys. But there's a way that you'll get it to go forward. Anyway, I'm not a cardistry teacher, so I don't think that anything's there. But in terms of just like doing this kind of shuffle, if you can train yourself, it's like a total brain stretch to do it in your non-dominant hand, to like even think about changing. But spending some time on it is great neurobic brain exercise that uses your physical body. And to be able to shuffle in both hands is quite something. And you know, there's the charlier cut that I just showed you in one hand, and I can do it in both hands. I'm not going to be able to do this because my hand is too sweaty. But there's also this cut like this, and then like this, and then like that. Too sticky. But to do it in both hands is really, really great. And I've gotten that. And I think some people call this the octopus cut, because you're basically making multiple arms like that. And to do that in both hands is quite good. It's a little bit more elaborate than that when you're not sweating, but a lot of fun. Anyway, just some general cardistry is great to learn, and legerdemain. So again, doing tricks with both hands. And so, you know, what that looks like is, here's a typical spread. Pick a card, any card. Then to reverse that and have it so that you're spreading from the other hand is quite a brain warp. And you just train yourself, get good at it, get it smooth. And actually, if you can do a spread in your non-dominant hand, there's a neat thing that you can do that hides the pips a little bit, a lot actually, and then you can reverse one of the cards in a way that's a lot easier if you're doing it from your non-dominant hand. But again, this is a bit of a trick for me, because as a sort of left-handed, dual-handed person, I typically do card tricks right-handed, even though I'm normally left-handed. So anyway, that's cardistry. You can do that. Let's do some card stuff when you come visit me in Brisbane, instead of trying to do it under these hot lights. I really admire the magicians who can do it under hot lights. And, you know, speaking of magicians, I'm going to go see some magicians here in Brisbane soon, and I'm very excited because some legends are coming to town. All right, what else do we got here? Well, there's also some neurobics you can do with your tongue. Let me know in the chat if you'd like to see some tongue exercises, because I'm not going to do it if you all don't want to see it. So let me know, and we'll see. We'll catch up with the chat, and we'll turn this into something slightly graphic. But there are some great tongue exercises I know that are great neurobics. All right, so Physical says, talk about a useful skill. Cold reading is awesome, but be careful, you can get a cold. Man, you're ripping out the humor today. I think you could get worse than a cold. You could get into a lot of trouble if you're pumping out the BS. Reclaiming Life says, I spend some time journaling with each hand every day, and with cardistry, I make sure I can do any new skill equally with both hands. Oh, that's great. That's a great policy. I wish I had done that from the beginning, especially, card control, because there's so much benefits for the brain and just being able to do that stuff. Both hands. Same with coins, actually. I didn't even talk about coins, but you could also throw coins in there. So I can do a muscle pass really well with this hand, but not at all with my left hand, which sucks. And some of the real next level stuff with the muscle pass with coins, wow, like when those guys can do it in both hands, I am ultra impressed. All right, let's see here. Era says, how do I get myself to just do it when I rather would spend time on pleasures? Good question, Era says. Think about how you can turn the thing that you just do it need to do into a pleasure, right? What is it that you need to do? Pop that into the chat. Let's mastermind on something specific and figure out where the pleasure is within, and maybe we can rig the game for you. All right. Physico says, love toothbrushing with the other hand. I handwrite with it as well. Got to try with closed eyes and backwards though. That is cool. It is a meditation for. I will do it. Great. And you say, Physico, I advise writing not using wrist movements. It is hard, but it pays off. No one gets lesions on wrists if we use elbow and shoulder. Okay. Not heard that one before, but thanks for that suggestion. Sanket says, I sometimes change the grip of the pen in the non-dominant hand. That really tends to activate my brain. Thanks for sharing that, Sanket. Sanket says, I've never tried tongue exercises. I'd love to know more about them. Great. So we got one person that wants tongue exercises. Let's see if we can get some more before I rip out the goods. I'm not gonna do that without some more interaction than that. But Sanket, appreciate your interest. Jaideep is here. Good to see you, Jaideep. Thanks for saying hello. Reclaiming Life says, I do tongue exercises when teaching myself to make sounds from languages that aren't in English. All right. That sounds great. Yeah, well, let's talk about that if we get enough interest in the tongue, because there's something about that I can share also. All right, another physical neurobic is ear pinch squats. I don't know why this works. I don't know if it works, how it works, but it's a cool thing. Basically, you're going to cross your arms and pinch your ears, and then you're going to squat. That's it. I'm not going to squat right now. I'm so sticky, I probably won't be able to get up as the backs of my thighs touch the back of my calves. But anyway, that's what you do. And it's a lot of fun. Very good for you. Great. So, Erisaz clarifies. How about doing taxes or reading a law article for required class? All right, well, let's take one of these and see how that we can get ourselves excited and find the pleasure within. All right, so I don't know if you're an entrepreneur or what, but there's a lot of different things here. I'm glad you asked this kind of question, because this is one of those things where it's pretty easy to manipulate yourself. So the first thing is that depending where you are, you can create all kinds of negative incentives. Negative incentives are very powerful. Like, for example, you could imagine yourself in prison for not doing the right thing in this area, and how terrible that would be, right? Of all the stupid reasons why you would wind up there, wouldn't that be one of them? I mean, think about that, right? Now, the other thing is, do you have to do your taxes? If it's that much pain for you, couldn't you just look in your bank account and see, like, could you hire somebody to help you with it? So that you don't have to have the pain at all. The pain of spending some money, as opposed to having a proper professional do it properly, is great. And then, should there ever be any audit or whatever, which you can buy audit insurance for in most places of the world, you just, well, here's what the people did, and they're professionals. They have some responsibility for this. You just reduce the stress. Yeah, you got to pay a bit of money, but, why sit around making this the barrier? Why? Now, in terms of finding pleasure in it, well, you could then play the other thing. So think about how good it's going to feel when it's off your back, and really go through this. the great feeling. Think about the last time it was a great feeling. Think about maybe the great feeling that's going to come when you see that you've saved $800 that you can now put into whatever, a trip to the next town just to go see some great concert or whatever. That's a positive incentive. But there's lots of stuff there. So taxes, I mean, really, if you're hung up on that, then you got to give your head a shake and just think the cost that this is, worrying about it, stressing about it, is just so easily solved by hiring a professional. And it's worth every penny. It is, as long as you hire a good professional. So this is really, really important to do. So there's that suggestion, and then give it a positive incentive. And now your other thing was reading a long essay. So this is pretty simple. One of the things to do when you have to read something really, really long and you're not into it, you're not interested in it, is just to chart out the reading. So look at how many pages it is, go through every page, map out the territory a little bit, read the conclusion, prime your mind a little bit, and just say, look, this is 10 pages. I'm going to set the clock. I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to read the first page. And if I don't get through the first page in the first 10 minutes, no problem. I spent 10 minutes on it. I'll bet you get through the first page and a half, if not 2 pages, just with this technique alone. Now, if you think that you can't read for 10 minutes straight, set the alarm for 8 minutes, right? Maybe just set the alarm for 8 minutes anyway. And this is Pomodoro 101, but the point is to preview it a bit, prime your mind for it, scan through every page, look at things that jump out at you, read the conclusion, make sure you know where things are going. And then the other thing is have a memory palace ready to go so that it's pleasurable, it's fun, you're enjoying the ride because you've got the tools. And as you read, encode, right? Or take notes of the things that you're going to encode for encoding in the memory palace. Because when you have this attitude, this mindset of, I'm going to go through this step by step and I'm going to absolutely master all of the details in this, I'm going to know them, I'm going to encode it in my memory, then it's a different prospect altogether. It's not a boring article anymore. It's an amazing learning challenge for which you're going to use the tools of mnemonics to improve your life and improve your studies and have an absolute path towards the next level. And if you go in with a fighter pilot attitude instead of a la-di-da, poor me attitude, well, then you're going to have a much better adventure of learning and so forth. So I hope that helps you out. And if it doesn't, come back with more questions around that. But part of it is also, and there's a blog post and podcast episode I did about this, about how to tackle boring topics. Just be grateful that you have the opportunity for any of this at all. You could be digging in dirt for insects that you have to eat, but instead you've got problems, like having to pay taxes and read essays. Really? Is that really such a challenge? What lack of gratitude is going on in your life that you can't see what a blessing it is? The evil Dr. Forget has you in his grips if you're not grateful for the opportunities that you have to even have such first world problems in the first place. And even if you're not in the first world, if you have those problems, those 2 problems, well, then you're even more on top of your game, so to speak, in terms of the luck card. You are just so privileged and blessed. So I would get down on my knees and be grateful to have those problems, and then see what you could do to speed up the process of getting yourself to be the best possible professional you can be, so you can give back to the community, because a lot of the things that got you in that position are not your responsibility. You probably were born in a context that enabled that. You probably had some chance encounters in life that pushed you this way or that way that you can't take responsibility for. You were lucky upon luck, and man, you really need to put the sob story into context. And that's not to point a finger at the person asking the question in this particular case, but it's rather to just look at how we do this to ourselves, all of us, because I did it to myself too. And it's not cool. It's stupid. It's actually, as Gilles Deleuze once said, that the only thing worthy of hatred is stupidity. And then after I crossed over from the dark side into the light side and saw what nasty brain energy wasting sob stories I caught myself in, I was just like, I hated that dude for a while. Now I got over the hate, and I suggest get over it as soon as possible as well. But man, what a moron I used to be to even think I had a problem. Those weren't problems; those were blessings. So hope that helps you out and gets you where you're going. All right, so not much interest in the tongue exercises, no problemo. Harry's here. Good to see you, Harry. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Reclaiming Life says, what weight do you go up to in those ear pinch squat reps? I don't know what you mean by what weight. I haven't weighed myself for so long. I don't know what my weight is, but I don't add any weight. But typically the idea is you breathe, do your squat, maybe hold it for 30 seconds or so at the bottom, and then come up and do as many as you like. I don't know if there's any studies on how many you should be doing and so forth. But if you want to add weight, I mean, just put some books in your backpack and see how it goes. All right, so that's our first category of neurobic exercises. Our next one is environmental neurobic exercises. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions. This is your opportunity to pop them in. Hi, Harry in Indonesia. Good to see you. Hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and how you're feeling. And we'll talk about the second category, which is environmental neurobic exercises. By the way, if you're not subscribed to this channel, smash, as they say, that subscribe button now. Join us. For notifications, click the bell icon. And we got some new videos coming up. Some very, very new videos coming up in the very, very new future. And the near future. But the future is always new every minute that it arrives, which is a beautiful thing. I'm a big fan of the future coming into existence every minute. All right, so the second category is environmental neurobic exercises, and the first exercise is eyes closed navigation. So you want to be very, very careful about eyes closed navigation. Do not do this at home. I'm not making any recommendations that anybody actually do this without supervision, but a simple way that I do it myself is I get out of the elevator and I'll just walk with my eyes closed to the door. And another related exercise to this is the eyes closed key exercise. So everything from getting out of the elevator, walking to the door, getting out the keys, identifying the key that is needed, putting the key into the key hole, turning, unlocking it, opening the door, stepping inside, closing the door, and then usually I'll get to the office that I'm in right now, and that's about it. Then I open my eyes. This is a clear path. There's no obstructions. There's nothing to trip over. Sometimes I will touch the walls. Other times I'll try to do it without the walls. I'll, sometimes count the steps while I'm doing this. Other times I won't count the steps. It's just a general sort of thing. And it's really fun. I've done this outdoors, which I don't really recommend. But whatever you do, be safe. Be safe. And hello to Mark. Thanks for being here with us on Facebook. I'm glad you appreciate them. Started recently doing that these stream both to YouTube and Facebook at the same time. And I've been wondering if people on Facebook actually enjoy it and if they show up to it. And so great to hear from you that you do. Thanks for letting me know. If you're on Facebook right now and watching this, let me know and do that with a chat. And I'll look forward to answering any questions that you have. And let me know if you are enjoying these exercises today. And looking forward to learning more about you all, always. All right, so Physico says, get up and deal with it. Wise words that I heard first from a 5-year-old that was hurt in his knee. He was saying that to himself. What a wise little boy. Thanks for mentioning this, actually. This gives me a memory of something that relates to this. That this sort of speech that I just gave about, be grateful for what you got and, stop with the sob story. And the question is why do we get sob stories anyway? Well, Daniel Robinson, he gives a great lecture on Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein, if you don't know him, is an amazing philosopher, but he was a teacher. I don't know if he did professing, but he, is very famous for saying, that of whereof we cannot speak, we should be silent, or whatever. I never memorized the actual quote. I should memorize it because it's originally in German, which would be a great quote to memorize. But anyway, very good advice to be silent about the things that you have nothing to say about, and good advice from him. It reminds one of Proverbs 18:13, which is to answer before listening. That is folly and shame. In any case, Daniel N. Robinson, his lecture on the Wittgenstein, he tells this story about a man at a cocktail party who bangs his knee. And why is it that the adult man at the cocktail party who bangs his knee is not like a little boy who bangs his knee and will burst into tears, right? What's the difference here? The little boy will bang his, not physical as a little boy, but the average little child, let's say, bangs the knee, bursts into tears, but the adult bangs the knee on the table and says in the internal dialogue, "Oh my, I've banged my knee. I'd best get myself to the washroom and see what's happened there." And then the person excuses him or herself, goes to the bathroom, pulls up the trousers, and sees that there's some blood there, and finds something to clean it up. Maybe there's some rubbing alcohol or whatever, and cleans up the wound, and then goes back outside and carries on with their day and the party. And maybe they mention to the party owner, "I'm sorry, I banged my knee on your table, and I've used a bit of your iodine or your rubbing alcohol or whatever. Hope that's okay. Didn't want to make a disturbance." Whatever. That sort of thing. But the child screams. Now, Robinson, streamlining Wittgenstein and the philosophy of Wittgenstein, game or language games and etc., which relates a lot to game theory. He says, what's the difference here, practically and literally? And he says the sensation is exactly the same. The pain of having your knee banged against the table for the child and the adult is according to this theory here, is the exact same sensation. Pain is pain is pain. Doesn't matter if you're 90 or 19 or 9. The physical sensation of banging your knees is the same. The difference is the socialization of your response. So, if you hadn't been schooled over the years to not make a ruckus when you harm yourself, that adult would probably cry in tears from the same pain, but socialization over time has turned pain into a private event that is dealt with privately, and the actual sensation is the same. So what has changed is the learned response to the stimulation in the world. And so this is very interesting in the context of what we've been talking about today with people. Like, why is it that some people simply have the wherewithal to get out and make change in their life, and other people are trapped forever, right? Because whatever pain they're feeling is the same for the person who made the change as it is for the people who do not. I don't necessarily have an answer here, but it's an interesting thing to think about, and that's why I'm grateful that you mentioned this, physical. So thank you for that. This little boy and his attitude, his mindset, get up and deal with it. Why is it that some people have that? Part of the answer must be luck. It must be contextual exposure to witnessing, and witnessing in such a way that you adopt for yourself an attitude that leads you to take action differently than some other people. There must be something to this. And this is then, therefore, a memory issue, right? And this is part of what Jordan Peterson is talking about in Maps of Meaning, and to a slightly lesser but also a slightly more targeted extent in 12 Rules for Life. So, by the way, got to meet that dude with my little VIP pass. It was awesome. And asked him a question, got an answer. That was pretty cool. All right. So, more on that coming in the near future. But the thing is you want to ask yourself, like, where does this learned helplessness, this lack of action come from? And what's the things that I could do to do this? And these neurobic exercises really helped me because they changed how that I was thinking about the world. And so it might seem like the most inane thing to do, to close your eyes, to open up a key lock and all that sort of stuff, but it really shifts you. It changes how that you perceive the world. I can't quite explain why, but I know it was a part of what got me out of that prison of self-hatred and thoughts that locked me in this downward spiral and started to help me have a fighter pilot attitude. And they continue to help me maintain the fighter pilot attitude because these exercises are like jet fuel. And if you're consistent with them, then you're able to maintain cruising altitude and when you need to, and relax when you need to, and you just have smooth landings when you gotta land, assuming you ever want to land, which I don't. Mark says, I'm a pianist. There is a great exercise from my professor. She plays piano and reads a book at the same time. That's cool. That's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that. One of the things that I'm never very successful at doing is playing guitar while listening to lectures. I've often tried to do this, but maybe if I try to play guitar while reading, I'm going to try that. And I don't know why that I can't split my attention, but I find that I'm not listening to the lecture while I'm playing, or I can't really play because I get involved in the lecture. I haven't been able to split the channels, but maybe reading. Anyway, cool. Thanks so much for that. I really appreciate that. I'm going to try that. All right. Let's go carry on with another exercise. You could do eyes closed showering. Again, not necessarily recommending this to anybody. Make sure everything's safe for you to do this when and if you do it. By the way, thanks for saying hello, Amy. Good to see you in Oregon. I never have seen Oregon, but I hope to one day. It sounds like a beautiful place. Been to Seattle, and I'm sure some of the territory is similar. All right, so this is pretty simple. Eyes closed showering. I've done a lot with Wim Hof method in the shower and breathing exercises in the shower with eyes closed. Done a lot of cold shower stuff. Done a lot of chanting in the shower. It's really, really great, and eyes closed is great. One of the things that I find is even though, I'm on this project to wipe out my ego and achieve mental silence and so forth, which is going great, I still have these things that come in my mind and I catch myself having this discussion with nobody. And in the shower, I just catch myself a lot often. And I just go to my Chittameva Mahadosham, Chittameva Hi Balakaha, and so on, which is, reminding myself that the mind, that it actually says in Sanskrit, the mind is like a little boy out of control, jumping from thing to thing. And I just start to focus on that. And it's really great. It happens a lot in the shower. Why? Well, because when you're in the shower, you're actually creating a diffuse mental environment. That's why a lot of creative ideas come in the shower, because you start to mind wander. It's like something about it makes your mind wander. Also often in the morning, because for a lot of people, your creativity is often supercharged in the morning. And if you're doing these things in the shower, then you're going to get a lot more ideas and so forth. And your mind, it'll come from mind watering and these epiphanies. So I don't always shut it off because sometimes this great idea will come. Boom. Anyway, eyes closed in the shower, chanting, awesome. Cold shower, awesome. Breathing in the shower, awesome. We've talked about breathing exercises on a different live stream and dedicated videos, and we shall do so again in the future. Another exercise, eat with your eyes closed. I often do this. My wife thinks it's a bit strange, but it gives you a different tactile sensation, experience, different sounds, and so forth that are really, really interesting. And remember I said earlier at the beginning of our live stream today that a lot of these things cross over, right? So the tactile, physical, and the environmental, and the auditory really, really, they bridge together. But eyes closed eating, I would put in environmental because you're in this environment whenever you're eating that we often don't pay attention to. Like we're zeroed in, we're narrowed in, we're focused in on what's in front of us on the plate. And we're then thinking and we're not even really tasting or enjoying. And eyes closed, it will change what you think taste is, the sensation of taste. But you can also listen more to the environment and pay more attention to where the people are around you, where the objects are around you, what the sounds are like, the sounds of the food, the sounds of the room. You can practice separating the sounds from the sounds of the room, eating sounds and so forth. Really, really great. Now, some of my favorites are these environmental neurobic exercises. So changing micro routes. Oh, I'll never forget when I first started doing this. It was amazing. So you walk down the street, and you always just walk down the street the exact same way. But how about just circling around a mailbox for no reason other than to change the micro route, right? So it's the same route that you go all the time. You take that route, left, right, and center, yada, yada, yada. Bam, you get there. But if you just start to like notice these things, there's all kinds of poles, there's all kinds of mailboxes, there's all kinds of electrical boxes, there's all kinds of signs and so forth. And you can just stop and notice and circle them. You can circle them, how do you say it, clockwise one time, counterclockwise the next time, and just sort of track in your mind. How did I go around it last time? Oh, I went clockwise. This time I'll go counterclockwise, right? Or you can like circle 8 around a number of objects. I know this sounds kind of insane, but it's really cool. And it just changes how you feel. It changes how you think about environment. It injects a little bit of play, and it gives you a memory exercise in terms of tracking what you did the last time, what you're going to vary the next time. And in some sense, it relates to the 4 details exercise. If you know that, then check, cross-reference it in your mind to this. Maybe bring the two together. And if you don't know the 4 details exercise, there's a link in the description for some brain exercises, 9 in total. Please check those out. And as usual, often in these live streams, there are some further resources for you, including the free memory improvement kit. Go and grab that. And let me grab one more exercise here for you, and then we'll catch up with Kyle's chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Join us in the discussion, and let me know where you are in the world. And if you have questions, comments, things you want to add, that's awesome too. And then, of course, you can change macro routes. So we fall into these patterns. We always just go the same way every time. One of the things that you can do is just change it, right? So I've since forever just been a public transit person. I have no desire to have a car or to really ever have one unless I move out to the forest or the jungle or wherever you might move that would be far away and necessitate a car. But usually I live in places that don't, so I don't have one. But you can just take entirely different routes, even on transit. Leave an hour earlier. And, in Berlin, the Ring, there's many, many multiple ways to get to locations from multiple things. So you can take the S-Bahn version of the Ring, or you can go through some of the U-Bahn stuff. You can take the Straßenbahn, streetcar. You could do all kinds of different variations. Helen is here from Texas. Thank you for saying hello. Glad you're finding this awesome. You're awesome too. Really appreciate you being here and letting me know. Love that. So, how are things in Texas? I'm always curious where in Texas people live, but feel free to be more specific as you feel comfortable in doing. But I want to visit Texas so bad. It seems like such an awesome place. All right. So let's catch up here with the chats before we move on to, for some reason I have 2 slides here, but after we go through the micro and macro route changes as we've just done, we're going to go on to the 3rd category, which is auditory neurobic exercises. I got a bunch for you here. And again, these are just ones that I have used myself, and there's obviously others. So I'm just focusing on the ones that I've done. Let's see here. Kyle says, how do you memorize information inside of information, like 100 pictures of muscles, each with unique origins, insertions, etc.? I thought of using bridging figures, but I would need to make basically hundreds. Interesting question, Kyle. Thanks for that. So here's the thing. I have never done this, so take this with a grain of salt. But if I had to tackle this, what I would do is I would probably build outward. So let's say we got a memory palace. Batman is in the corner. I'm going to have in corner 1 Batman, and I'm going to do the bones first. This is the most interior, as far as I know, that you can get, right? Corner 2 is going to be Batman again, but now we're going to do the muscles, right? Then corner 3, maybe it's Batman again. Maybe it's Superman. I don't know, whatever. Then here we're going to do the joints, or I don't know. Like I don't know anatomy, so I'm not going to know how exactly the best strategy is. But this will give you some ideas for strategy. Let me know if you have further questions around this. But whatever, maybe it's the vein network, or the artery, veins and arteries. Maybe you need to do them separate. Maybe you can do them one by one. So corner 3 is the veins, corner 4 is the arteries. Then maybe new room, corner 5 is the organs, and then maybe you go to a new room and you just do the brain. New room, you just do the heart, etc. Split it up, divide it. You won't need hundreds of bridging figures. You'll just use Batman over and over and over again. Batman's not your bag? No problem. I mean, I don't know where Julie has been lately, but I haven't seen her for a while. We haven't seen her, better said, but I like Batman. He's cool. Always be yourself. Unless you could be Batman, and then always be Batman. Really great gift from her. Thank you for that, Julie, always. But you could use Batman in one corner, Superman in another, Aquaman in another. Let's not neglect the Marvel universe. You can use Spider-Man in another, etc., etc. You could use Cat in the Hat in another. You could use Thing 1, Thing 2, and so forth. Hope that gives you something to play with, Kyle. And believe you're in the master class, so you can always check out the FAQ section for some of the other dedicated trainings there on dealing with the body that have showed up. Physical says, I'm experimenting with masticating 40 times before gulping down. Helps with full awareness and makes you lose willpower to eat a bunch. Good policy. Generally, people do not masticate enough. And great word, by the way. Mastication. I like that one. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, so we've got the third category, which is auditory neurobic exercises. The first is instrument tracking. So what does this mean? Well, listen to an album or a song. Just start with a song. And just listen to the drums. See how long you can hold the drums. Drums not your bag, don't worry. Just listen to the bass. Not your thing, just listen to the guitar. One of the things I love to do, like with Guns N' Roses. Guns N' Roses is a very, very dual channel guitar sort of experience. So you'll hear these two guitars, left channel, right channel. Just follow one of them. And then go back and listen to it again. Follow the other one. See how long you can do it without fading out, right? Just stick with it. So just drums I love. Then you can try drums and bass. Just really focusing on them. You're not looking for any software here to divide them for you. You're mentally dividing them. It's like as if I could only hear the bass and follow that through this, what would that sound like? And just really, really follow it as long as you can. Just the drums. You're tracking just that instrument. There might be other things that you could focus on, and I'm not sure what they would be, but think of that. It's a great exercise. I love it. You can also read out loud ultra slow. So if we get one of these Bruno First books you can remember, it'd be like, we wish to achieve, right? And it's really interesting. It really exercises your focus, exercises your mouth muscles in a particular way. It's really interesting. Another thing you can do is read really fast. So we wish to achieve similar reliability in our memory check room like the hat check girl who hangs her hat on a hook. We shall hang what we wish to remember on hooks we create. They will enable us to put everything in its place and to find immediately and without hesitation whenever we need it. That's a cool exercise as well. And there's certainly some fun videos on YouTube where you can hear people talking really fast, and they're really good at talking really fast, and maybe spend some time studying auctions where people are, Suki. I'm not sure how it goes, but I saw lots of auctions when I was a kid. And I'm sure down in Texas there are lots of opportunities to go to the county fair and see some auctions and hear people yelling out prices. So reading ultra fast is another option. And this is related. We already sort of talked about this, but eat in silence and listen to the chewing. So Physico is talking about, masticating 40 times. Can you listen and count at the same time and number them, right? That'd be a very interesting thing. And then the metronome exercise, which I've shared many times before, but I think it was worth mentioning here. Metronome exercise is just setting a metronome and covering the click. So you'll hear a metronome going, and you set it as far apart as you think you can have the beats. Tick, 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 and then you try and cover them. And so if we had an actual metronome going here, my non-internet device is not here for doing that, but it's pretty simple to understand. You set a metronome and then you try to cover the click with your own clapping. And this is really neat because then you can set the distance between the clicks further and further away. You're getting your body involved, but you're using your sound, and it's just really rewarding. And this is something that I have done for many years. It's great concentration exercise, great brain exercise, really focus and awareness oriented, and really getting you to be in space with sound. Physically, mentally, it's great. Another thing you can do is count your breaths out loud. So this is pretty simple. 1, 2, like that. Or 1, 2, 3, 4. Kind of weird, but fun. Give it a try. You can also count your breath silently, of course, but this is getting your ears involved in a way that won't happen if you don't do it out loud. So give that a try. Kyle says, thanks for the great answer always. Sorry if this is a common question, but how important is sleep for learning and memorizing? As a college student who drinks coffee to study all day and night. Okay, good question. So I don't know if you were here earlier. We talked about coffee, how I didn't drink it for years. I never drank coffee through university. So I don't know what it would be like to deal with coffee in university. I really don't. I can't even think of a single time that I drank coffee during university. I must have, but I really gave up coffee when I was 14. A long story that we don't have to get into now, but why don't we? There was a place where I grew up called The Verse, and we used to go there and just, they had bottomless cups, and it was $1 at that time. If you can imagine how long ago this was. And we're supposed to be in high school and stuff, and we'd go and we would drink coffee till 2, 3 in the morning because The Verse is like a trucker stop restaurant. And yeah, that's probably why I ruined high school. But, we were doing other bad stuff too. But we used to not do things like smoke pot or take acid or whatever. We also used to just get totally bonkers on coffee and then, not sleep for 2 days or whatever. And just to make things worse, Jolt was sort of a pre-Red Bull product at the time, and we'd drink Jolt and stuff like that. Anyway, we would draw, we would do all kinds of stuff there, and I don't know how or why that was so fascinating to us, but that's what we'd do. And so I just so coffeed myself out that around 14 or 15, I just totally stopped it. Never did coffee again until recently. Now, in terms of how important sleep is for memory, well, it's very, very important, although there's some research that shows that it's important at different ages. So one of the key things with sleep and memory is consolidation. And they used to just recommend sleep consolidation for memory just across the board. But some of the recent research suggests that when you're in your 40s or around about there, the actual amount of sleep consolidation, the entrance of information from wherever it is in memory into longer term memory during sleep actually goes down. I don't know how conclusive that research is, but it was very, very compelling to read about. But sleep is super important. It should be your number one asset that you should be considering protecting and studying all day and night. If you have your memory techniques down, I don't think you should need to put that much into it. You could potentially be doing more damage than you're doing yourself good by studying that way. And so here's where in university I can really speak, is that I didn't do coffee, but I drank a lot of alcohol. I wish that I wouldn't have drank so much alcohol. But my study time, I had so much free time. And one of the ways that I did so well in terms of studying is using memory techniques. So, and reading in a particular way, which, you're in the master class, I believe. So dive in, make sure you retake the master plan and see how I took notes, what I did in order to get those notes into long-term memory. And you could probably get a lot more spare time for sleeping, to take naps and so forth. I took a lot of naps in university. And the only thing I would change really is I would remove the alcohol. I was self-medicating though, and it was a survival technique. And fortunately, it was not too destructive. But there are some bar fights I could have lived without, such as needing serious nose correction surgery and so forth. That kind of stuff doesn't happen if you're not drinking yourself stupid and putting yourself in dangerous situations. So, think about the extent to which coffee is self medicating that might not be necessary, or can you scale back? Can you reduce coffee? I've been reducing coffee a lot recently. Used to drink coffee every day, twice a day, and now I've scaled it back to maybe 2 times a week, maybe three. But now that I'm back on much less coffee, I think that there was there I wouldn't call it really a reliance, but there's this kind of like a mental attachment to what coffee does that actually isn't true. When you remove it, you find that actually what you thought it was doing for you, it really isn't. And it's almost a mindset thing, like we talked about earlier today. So this is something to consider. Consider the extent to which it's helping you because it actually has a psychoactive component, or it's helping you because you've created a mental environment that, in a kind of a placebo way, creates the effect that you don't actually need the coffee for. So that's very interesting. And in my new book, I'm talking about the placebo effect, some recent research around the placebo effect, and more about how to create your own placebos. And a lot of these neurobic exercises we've talked about today can help you create placebos. But we want to think about how all of this relates to memory, of course. And the number one technique that we talked about is thinking in terms of every room you're in. Are you in the room, or is the room in you? And that relates to this big point that I made about how neurobics are going to help your mindset. And everything that you want to think about is this truth, or is this effect that I'm feeling true because it's in me, because of a actual environment or a substance like coffee, or because of this, that, or the other thing? Or is it true because it's in me because of my thoughts about it? And that can be very, very empowering in order to make the change that you need. All right. So I hope that helps you further, Kyle. And in general, just try and see if you can take more breaks, get some more rest. Definitely cherish your sleep, no matter what age you're at, for purposes of memory consolidation. If you need it, I have a book called The Ultimate Sleep Remedy that can help you sleep more, and learn some of the stretching aerobic, I guess they're aerobic, but yogic exercises that are out there. Meditation is huge for helping with sleep. I like to stretch and meditate before I go to sleep. Do some of my chanting, really helps bring sleep on. Make sure you have no devices in the room where you sleep. Put the devices elsewhere, please, 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 please. That's killing so many people. I know that people like to have their alarm clocks, and that's why they have it there, but come on, there's got to be a better alarm clock system that you can have than that. There has to be. We're clever people of great intelligence. We can figure out a way to wake ourselves up with alarm clocks that don't require the internet and lights that, they say in the science that seeing the light from a device is the equivalent of a shot of espresso. Not good if you want to get a good sleep. Anyway, I know how difficult it can be from personal experience to not have devices and to not be like, oh man, I just want to watch one more video and so forth. But my own computer curfew is very, very powerful. And if I really must watch some video, after a computer curfew crashes down, then that's done in the kitchen, not the bedroom. You've got to train yourself so that the environment is conditions you to be in a state by virtue of how the environment operates, so that when you enter it, then you both consciously and unconsciously just fall into the pattern that's needed in order for that place to cause you to, as much as possible on autopilot, just follow through a stack of behaviors that lead to better sleep. And there's some things I talk about in the Ultimate Sleep Remedy that help you actually be so comfortable laying in bed that it's irrelevant to you whether you fall asleep or not. You're just enjoying being there, and that in and of itself helps you fall asleep. Andres is in the house. Good to see you, Andres. Thanks for saying hello. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And Physical says, knowing something is a placebo before it gets into a habit does not make the placebo useless. No, that's one of the findings. So you have all these studies where the doctor can say, so we're going to give you this sugar pill that is a placebo, and what it's going to do is going to reduce your gut pain by 48%, and really, if you take it for 2 weeks, it's going to reduce it by 98%. So this still works. However, some of the findings have identified potentially that certain people have genetic characteristics that make placebos more effective for some people than others. Isn't that interesting? Yes, it is. Very interesting indeed. And I talk about those findings in my upcoming book and what they pertain to for you in your memory. About that book, it's with the editor now. Probably 2 to 3 weeks, I'll get back the first edit, and we'll see where we go from there. All right, so what are your next steps? Pick one of the neurobic exercises that we talked about today. Just start with one. Or, you can do more. I don't know. I'm not going to put on, I'm not the neurobic exercise policeman. But in terms of being practical, it only makes sense to pick one and put it into action. And set a goal. Set a goal. Be specific, right? What would a goal be like? I'm going to do this neurobic exercise every day for a week, right? That's a goal. It's something that you can measure, something you can put in a scheduler. It is something you can, actually do because you've picked one. Most of these are like 10-second exercises. I mean, brushing your teeth with the non-dominant hand. Brush your teeth for at least 2 minutes, right? If not 3 minutes, 5 minutes. But set a goal to do it. Just this one little thing. And then here's what is really important. Execute to completion. Execute to completion. Which means if you say you're going to do it for 5 days, then do it for 5 days. Every day. Execute it every day. Sounds like common sense, right? Well, too bad, because we know that common sense isn't that common, so we got to spell it out anyway, right? Believe me, I need it as much as anybody else, because if we don't point out to ourselves again and again and again and have it pointed out, we won't remember. We'll keep making the same mistakes. And, there's so many things that I'm so good at the fundamentals in my life. I'll still, sometimes forget, oh, wait, the fundamentals of this or that. Have to remember to execute the fundamentals. I don't think it is a memory thing. I think it's that the brain is always looking for shortcuts. It's always trying to get you to cheat and skip the fundamentals. And so you got to the memory task is to remind yourself, don't skip the fundamentals. Execute to completion. So that's why common sense is not so common and why we need it. And then after that, pick another one. Pick another neurobic exercise and then repeat it. So Andre says he joined a little late from New York. All right, whereabouts in New York? We were talking about New York a lot today with Peggy. I don't know if Peggy's still around, but I encouraged her to go see the Little Red Lighthouse in Washington Heights area there, just sort of beside the Washington's bridge there. Why the heck? What the heck is that name of that bridge? The Washington Bridge? No, that's not right. I can't even think of it. It's been so long since I was there. George Washington Bridge. That's what it's got to be called. Brain fart there. Yeah, so I like New York. I like New York a lot. David says, good evening from Darien, Illinois. What a great name. Darien, Illinois. Good to see you, David. Thanks for saying hello. Wonderful to see your name. Andre says, how do you read at a consistent fast pace and at the same time memorize without taking forever? Choosing the main points. I know you read many books. Yeah, well, okay, so the first thing is I'm not a speed reader. I don't like speed reading. I don't see the point in training oneself to speed read, although there's nothing wrong with it, and it is a well verified skill. But you want to think about like to what book does this pertain, right? Because one of the things about this is that people don't have a Swiss Army knife of reading. They don't really think about this kind of book or the kinds of books that we're talking about. And that's a big problem because there's different styles of books. And what you want to be able to do is have an adaptive methodology for the different styles of books that you're going to find. And you're always going to need a kind of case-by-case scenario because not all books are written the same way and not all books are equal. So the first tip and step, Andres, is that you're going to want to learn how to deal with what I call the paratext of a book. And so what you got to do is you got to understand how to analyze books and how to analyze books and understand the structure of books, how different books are structured for the purposes of reading them faster and memorizing them faster is all covered in a course in the masterclass called the Master Plan. I talk of this as called bibliomancy. Always got to have these fancy words, right? But I really mean it as bibliomancy because it is this kind of magical spell casting where you know what kind of book it is, you cross-index your strategy against the goal, the outcome, and then you map out the path based on you having a few different strategies you can use and you having an understanding of the goal, of the outcome for that book. So there's no sort of easy street, this technique works for all books. It's more like, okay, you've got a Swiss Army knife. I'm going to pull out this one for this book. That's very, very important. And then some of those strategies are going to involve a memory palace most of the time, if not all of the time, probably all of the time. So you're going to want to have a memory palace network in place. And then this is like one of your Swiss Army knife tools, but then you're going to have Swiss Army knife tools inside of your memory palace. So you're going to want to have magnetic bridging figures. Think about how that they work there for you. Then you're going to want to think about, so am I going to memorize the material in this book real time or am I going to memorize it after the fact? For most people, I would suggest that you are memorizing it after the fact based on an extraction process of the most relevant material, right? So how you know what the most relevant material is also kind of covered there, and it's not it's not like there's one answer to this. There's strategies for knowing what the most relevant material is, and you also always have to be willing to let go of the outcome because you don't necessarily know what all the relevant strategy or relevant material is because you could get asked a question 20 years from now and still not know that. So great that you'll go over it. The master plan, I highly recommend going over it again. And if you're new to it, if you're watching this, it's the number one course to take once you're in the masterclass. And you'll find that there's different ways of thinking about this. Another tool that you can develop is you can memorize from books directly depending on the goal. And I would recommend this only with particular goals. You can memorize directly by using the pages themselves as memory palaces, but it depends on the nature of the information and so forth. So this is usually good for like general points. So, like page 77 of Maps of Meaning is the page where I can now remind myself of what is said there about episodic memory and nestic memory and the relationship of how that we can access our existing competence from understanding the tools in our existing episodic memory and how to enrich our lives with more material that we self-consciously get into episodic memory and see it for the wisdom content that it has. And then we use nestic memory and episodic memory together in order to combat uncertainty in life. That's page 77. I know it's on that page because I just used that page as a memory palace, and I used a 00 to 99 as part of turning that page into a kind of memory palace, but it's a different one. It's a different style of memory palace. If I was doing it for a thing where I was going to be examined or so forth, then I would not just like casually turn pages into memory palaces, because, well, maybe I would. I don't know. I don't think so, though, because as you'll learn in the master plan, there's a lot of assets that you can create by doing it a different way, as talked about there. Hashir is here, my man. Good to see you. Hello, hello. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And I hope you enjoyed all of these neurobic exercises. To sum up, neurobics are a way to actually give your physical brain exercise in a way that improves lots of things. The actual flow of oxygen through the brain, the flow of blood, the flow of positive and negative ions through the synapses, and so on and so forth. And as we talked about today, there's a number of ways to link it to the physical world, to different aspects of the environment, and to sound in particular. Those were the three categories. Gave you a wide number of exercises that you can try. People in the chat, they shared a number of wonderful variations, there are things that they've done. We talked about music. We talked about all kinds of things. If you have any questions, I'll be here for a few more minutes. If not, then I'm going to call it a day. But I really, really appreciated this. And Hashir says, yep, awesome exercise for memory palaces. I really enjoy these sessions. If you don't have the Magnetic Memory Method free course and you're interested in developing your brain for rapid learning, languages, better performance on exams, better professionalism because you are the go-to person in your field, then you're going to want to get started with the free memory improvement kit at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT, or as so many people here today, just get the masterclass so that you're able to just master your memory, master your mind, master your focus, your clarity, your ability to just be in the moment. I saw this interesting video for the second time with Bill Murray the other day, and he was being interviewed by Rose. What's that guy's name? Rose. I can't think of his name, but it'll come to me. I never memorized his name, but his last name's Rose for sure. He just said, you know, what is it in your career that you would want to have more of? You know, you've got all this stuff, you've got all these accomplishments, etc. And he said, I'd want to be more present in the moment, And that was really, really amazing to me, because I never would have thought of that years ago before I got into neurobics. But now that I have increased my ability to be in the present moment, that's the answer I should have had if I had been asked that question. Because probably I would have had some nonsense answer if somebody asked me that back in the day. And by the way, a cool exercise when you can't find back a name that you've never memorized, but you've gotten part of it, and this is another additional bonus neurobic exercise, is you can just think, okay, so what was that name? A, no. B, no. C, no. D, no. And go through the alphabet. And so, who is this Rose guy? And I would just go through it. D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Was it Peter Rose? No, that can't be right. It doesn't always work, but it's something to do. Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, Y, X, Z. Now, I still can't find it, but often it does work. But it can't be Peter Rose. That's the only thing that's coming, but that doesn't sound right at all. Frustrating sometimes. Relax, and it will come. Let's see. And that's another strategy, is just let it go, and it'll come. Charlie Rose. Okay, so thank you, Peggy. Why didn't C work there? That sounds right. Anyway, sometimes you got to work in a team. Appreciate that, Peggy. Thank you. All right, let's see here. Andres says, you mentioned that when you had to read many books, you could even tell the page number. How long did that take you? Thank you for your answers. That that in that time was through a dedicated strategy of memorizing the page numbers, and how long it took was not long at all. For example, Charlie Rose, I struggle with today, but the 11th verse of the Isha Upanishad is, he who knows that as being both in one, the knowledge and the ignorance, by the ignorance crosses beyond death, and by the knowledge enjoys immortality. That's on page 22. The reason why I know it's the 11th verse and I know that it's on page 22 is because simply in that memory palace, I also included 11, which is a toad, and 22, which is a nun, right? And that's how you do it. It's very, very simple. And one of the things that you can do that's very powerful, I don't have it here to show you, but you can memorize the pages on which chapters begin. And so you don't have to memorize every single page, although you can. I just memorize the page numbers that are relevant. And so, like, for example, the Upadesa Saram that I'm memorizing now is page 75. It starts in Happiness Beyond Thought. And that just is like a mental bookmark, so I can just go back to the beginning. Likewise, in this memorization of the Isha Upanishad, just confined there. That's where I was, that's where that was, and so on. So it's like a mental bookmark. But the beginnings of chapters can be very, very good. And that's essentially what happened in in my PhD dissertation. I was just like, no, that's on page 72. And so this is a clarity that came from knowing where exactly that chapter started. And so it's very, very simple. Also, I knew the pages of where things were in my dissertation from a similar sort of exercise. But how long it actually took should take seconds, right? You know what page it is that you want to memorize. If you're strong with a 00 to 99, and or even just with a major, and you haven't built out your 00 to 99 yet, all you got to do is you're there. You just encode it, add it to it. There's another sort of thing that you might consider, which is, instead of numbering pages in a memory palace, you can number your stations in your memory palace. Sorry, instead of numbering your stations in a memory palace, you can number the stations in the memory palace in a way that indexes the actual page numbers of the knowledge. So if I was memorizing all of the Isha Upanishad, I just wanted to memorize that one line. If I was doing it all, well, I could just have a memory palace for page 22, for example. And then inside that memory palace, I'm actually not sure how many verses are on that page, but I'd gather that the 11th verse is probably the second or third verse on the page. And there's probably 5 verses on the page, maybe 5 or 6. And so in Memory Palace for page 22, that let's say there's 5 verses, there could be 5 stations, and then I would go there. And I could mark each one, not station 1, station 2, station 3, but let's say it starts on station 9 or whatever. Then the first thing is going to be station 9, which will indicate that it's verse 9, and then verse 10, and so on. So you could do that. Certainly, that would be a very good idea, actually. So thanks for asking the question. And you say, that sounds like Dr. Yip, the way he used the page itself as a memory palace and words as further memory locations to memorize about 57,000 words in the dictionary. Thanks for mentioning Dr. Yip. Yeah, and I don't know exactly. I mean, this is the beauty of the thing, right? Is no matter how much we explain how to do, what to do, etc., and how we learn, and Dr. Yip is great to watch and figure out, it's still always mysterious until you get in and do it yourself. And you're always going to have slightly your own version, and you're going to make discoveries because you did it for yourself. And really, really great. And if you're in the Magnetic Memory Method Mastermind and you're active in the group discussion, then Christian just posted a wonderful little discussion of Dr. Yip and what he learned from Dr. Yip, and how he was memorizing elephantiasis and showing what he learned from Dr. Yip, cross-indexing it with the MMM, and really beautiful video. So if you're not in the mastermind and you would like to be, then when you join the masterclass, just opt in for the mastermind, and then you'll get access to that. And we just have an amazing time. Got some next level players in there posting their stuff, and really great group. So let me know if you need to upgrade or whatever. And if you're new, then do consider grabbing that. The Half-Born King is in the house. Thanks for being here, Half-Born King. Please tell some history, geography, memory tricks. Well, history, what do you mean by history? History is got a lot of components to it. So please say more. Geography has a lot of components. Are we talking about the difference between cloud formations, or are we talking about maps? Specificity really matters. And we're not interested in tricks. We're interested in the fundamentals. Sometimes I will use the word tricks here and there, but we're really not. About the mastermind, if you're in there, then you get an invitation to the dojo, which we hold, which is our private discussions. So Andres says, I'm there, but I haven't been active. I really would like to focus. Great. That's a good policy. I mean, it's there for when you're ready. And here's a little tip for everybody. There's something called Kill Newsfeed for Chrome, which makes Facebook a much better experience. I think you can toggle it on and off. I've never toggled it off since that I use it, because I really don't care about Facebook stuff. But it just allows me to go in, hang out with the groups that I have and so forth, post my Memory Dojo stuff, and really love meeting with all the people and seeing the wonderful things they post there. It just makes it easy for the members to post their own videos, post their own images, and we have a lot of fun. And always appreciate that. But I understand it's not meant to split your focus, so do keep on your goal. And I hope that these tips that we had today, this conversation, really helps you. Let's see. Are we missing anything here? Gaurav is here. Good to see you, Gaurav. Thanks for saying hello. You say you're listening to answers to different questions. Very useful. Keep it up. Thanks, Gaurav. Thanks for being here. Thanks for saying hello. Always appreciate when you all say hello. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and hopefully we can get some of your questions answered if you have them. And it looks like we had some nice Q&A today. I certainly enjoyed answering the questions that came up, and I would invite you again, if you're not already in the masterclass, to get started with the free memory improvement kit down here at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT. And well, what can I say? Invest in yourself, invest in your training. Everything takes time, energy, focus. It takes sometimes a bit of dough. You're worth it. You're worth it. Anything that you can do to prove to yourself that you're worth it, do it, because you're so worth it. You're so worth it. Andres says, thank you. I was trying to finish the memory palaces. Great. Yeah, I mean, you're doing yourself a huge favor if you get them all done, get them used, and, if getting them done becomes a barrier, then obviously you just want to use what you got and keep adding them. It's a skill for life. Spatial memory you unlock progressively as you go through life. The more that you create, the more that you use, the more that you're going to get so many benefits. The memory science calls this memory reserve. If you want to learn more about memory reserve, listen to my interview on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast with Christine Till. We talk about software, why software doesn't really work, how to make the software work better if you do want it to work. And I think I've got that nailed quite well in the work that I'm doing. Speaking of which, doing some investigations of software and thinking about exactly how to do it. That's part of what the Jordan Peterson thing is all about. That's coming up. And the best possible thing happened. Oh, it was amazing. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So glad that I was able to go. And Andrea says, using some online houses. Really, really great. Um, that can work too. There's a lot of potential with virtual memory palaces, and some of my thinking has shifted around this with Idris Zogai on the Magnetic Brain Method podcast, and that was very good. If you haven't heard it, check it out. Um, really, really appreciate everybody who listens to those episodes. And there's so much stuff to go through, obviously. Physico, have a good night. Thanks for being here. All your wonderful, compelling questions. Peggy says, for tip of the moments, maybe Charlie would come to us faster if we added CH to this. Hey, that's a good idea. Yeah, because that alphabet thing, you go, what is the most likely thing? So like A and B obviously was not. I don't know why I kept up come with Peter, but I think I know why, and that's because there is a Peter Rose um, in the world. I'm sure there's many, but that was sort of impeding there. But yeah, you're right. So letters in names to push it to ch would be a good suggestion. Thank you for that. Thank you for being here, Peggy, and for your participation. Always good to see you. And the other thing to think about here with Charlie Rose is I had a ugly sister effect there, and the reason why is because I was thinking more about this controversy that he had gotten in recently, and so this was impeding on his actual name. Interesting, but in any case, these are always in the works, and we got it. Group effort. Um, by the way, we got to talk about one of these days, but we'll do that on a live stream soon. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. Really appreciate each and every moment we can spend together. And if I can do anything that encourages you to take action on any of these things, let me know what that would look like, because action is the definitive factor here. If you ever wonder what distinguishes the people who succeed from those who do not, it really comes down to action. It comes down to action. How could it not be anything other than action? Why is action so pivotal? Well, the thing about neurobics to really understand is that they are changing your brain structure, right? And that's what action does. And you can't see the world in a particular way if you're not taking action. Your perspective can't change. You can't shine light into the darkness if you're not moving. And I know it can be horrible to be uncertain about what's going to happen. But if you just do a reality check and just let go of the need to know what will happen, then you're going to have much, much better results in life, because you can't know anyway. Even if someone could say, this is exactly what's going to happen, this is exactly when it's going to happen, this is exactly how it's going to happen, it's not true until it happens to you. And because you cannot know and will not know, what you need to do is you need to just take action anyway, no matter what happens. So one of the things I've memorized, I recommend anybody to memorize, is from the Upadesa Saram Kartharajniya Parapayute Phalam Karma Kim Param Karma Taj Jadam Kriti Mahodadao Patana Karanam Phalamashashvatam Gati Nirodhakam Ishvarapatam Netchaya Kratam Chittasodhakam Mukti Sadhakam. Basically what that means is you don't control the laws that govern the universe. So let it go. Let it go. And every action you take will put action into the great ocean, it says, the great ocean of action, and return action to you. And essentially every action will give you new actions to take. And then you need to just be careful about the actions that you take, because you may not want the responsibility of the amazing things that happen, right? And so this is karma. This is, what happens is that every action creates more actions, and you'll kind of be yoked along. But not taking action is also an action which can yoke you to taking action that you don't want to take. So you got to take action, right? And how do you do it so that you're comfortable with not knowing the outcome? Well, you do some self-analysis. And the third line, the third part there of that big Sanskrit spiel that I just gave, beautiful stuff. It sounds so beautiful. It sounds even better when it's sung. And it feels so good in the brain to do it, to recite it. But almost makes me cry. It feels that good. Is that you let go of the outcome. You let it go, and you just give it. You give it to the world. You give it to the world. You give it without needing an outcome, without any expectation of return. And some of the spiritual traditions or the meditative traditions, they have it so nailed right. Is that if you want suffering, if you want pain, expect an outcome. It is said that expectation is the quickest path to suffering. Free yourself from the need for return and just enjoy the ride, because the ride is happening whether you like it or not. And so these things that we talked about today, these exercises, just put them into action and don't have any concern for the outcome, right? Just be indifferent, like a something like a scientist who is only interested in the data. All you care about is the data. You're not concerned whether it's right, wrong, left, center, up, down. You just want the data. You want to see what happens. And even if nothing happens, you love the experimental process. And you even surrender your love to that, right? Because you're just taking an action and you're seeing that that action can take you to future actions that are awesome. But not taking action can take you to further actions that are not awesome at all. All right. Let's catch up with a few last chats here. Andrew says, sometimes for me it's easier with those, or maybe I got used to the virtual houses. I don't have many real houses, so that's why I try the online 3D ones. Well, that's great. I mean, it can work. I highly recommend you listen to that interview with Idris Sogai. And there's other things where I've talked about virtual memory palaces. In the master plan, I talk about virtual memory palaces that I've tried. I've given some suggestions of ones that work really well for me that I think will work well for you as well. And dive in. You'll enjoy experimenting with it. I do odd experiments from here and there, time and time out. And at the end of the day, like Phil Chambers once pointed out, they're virtual no matter what. You know, they're in your brain, right? And your brain is a virtual space in some sense. It's a virtual reproduction of the external world that's being represented in your brain. And you say, wow, Sanskrit is your country's language. Amazing. So how's my pronunciation? Anyway, I've memorized more of the Upadesa Saram than that, but those are the best lines so far. Wow, amazing. Changed my life. Just really understanding it at a deep level. And you come to understand it better because you've memorized it. And Gaurav says, I want to memorize my geological dictionary. Kindly suggest some videos. I'm confused. Should I use the story imagination method in place of a memory palace? Well, Gaurav, I've got to do something about that for y'all in a YouTube version, but technically all that's covered in the masterclass already. And if you're confused, get some more training. If you haven't taken the free course, please do. It's at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT. And the way that I would memorize it is not so different than what I did to memorize the Upadesa Saram. And if you're really interested in hearing me do Sanskrit, there's a live stream where I do even more from the Ribhu Gita, 32 verses from the Ribhu Gita. Beautiful stuff. Amazing. Amazing what it can do for your brain. And I really love it. It's beautiful. Gaurav says, I have studied Sanskrit. You are good in it. Well, thanks for letting me know. I appreciate hearing from someone who studied it that I'm not doing too bad. It's very interesting. Interesting language. I'm so glad that I got into memorizing it. I wouldn't say that I'm learning Sanskrit as such. But, you know, I might by default if I memorize enough of it. But it's not as if I'm going to start studying and speaking Sanskrit every day anyway. But I'm glad to hear that it's going good and from someone who is in the know, Gaurav. So thanks. But to give you just a suggestion for a geological dictionary, I don't know what that would look like, but if it's about terminology, then learn how to memorize vocabulary, learn how to memorize terminology. And if it involves charts and graphs and diagrams, learn how to deal with them. And that's something where, you know, we can just throw out random tips, but I don't know that they're going to help you because I don't really know where you're at in the journey. I don't know what fundamentals you've covered. And those fundamentals are really, really important. But generally, you know, there's a means of memorizing all of those things. And you've just got to put in the fundamentals, and then think about what you're going to do, what your strategy is. So, we've talked a lot today about different things that would help you. And I don't know what it is that you need to memorize there. So it's very, very difficult to speak in specifics without a bigger picture of what's going on and knowing where you are in the journey, in the fundamentals. So if you can already memorize 10 words, then what is it that is the barrier here? If you can already deal with diagrams and flowcharts and whatever might be involved there, like process maps of what happens when a cloud turns into rain and all that sort of stuff, well then, you know how to parse that out, so to speak, on a memory palace journey or onto a wall or whatever. Then where are you and what do you need to do and how can we get you there? Those are all details that make a difference, and specificity is everything. Like with, memorizing Sanskrit, the specifics really matter. They really do. They are, we should say, thing one and thing two. I love that. All right, so if you haven't taken the free course, allow me to free you from the cold, cold heart of the evil Dr. Forget and warm you up so you become more like the wonderful, the amazing, the incredible, elephantiasis-free Edgar the Elephant, who is able to just crush his goals, do whatever he wants, learn rapidly on his journey to becoming an elephantologist, the world's leading elephantologist who knows everything about elephants and their entire tradition because he has the memory of an elephant. Thanks, everybody, for your kind attention today. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Get subscribed to this channel if you aren't already subscribed. And until we have a chance to speak again, keep yourself magnetic. See you on the next one. Bye, Bob. Sorry we missed you today, but we'll talk again soon, and the replay is for you. Enjoy. Talk soon. Bye-bye.